Welcome to my first Q&A in a long time. I put out a post on Instagram asking for some questions from you guys for a Q&A, so let's do it. Mackie Gerald asked, where is the best place to buy beauty products? For sure, you should go to Covent Garden, and there's loads of like boutique beauty brands there that have shops. So there's Charlotte Tilbury, I like her stuff. There's Aesop, there's like, I don't really know loads about that stuff, but there's tons of really good makeup stores around there. Kate Tao Gusto asked for best places for unique dining experiences. So I like the Soho Hotel. They have a cinema club, which happens on Sundays. They have a luxury cinema, and you go and you watch a movie with them. They give you popcorn, you can have champagne. The cinema is really nice. And then you get, with your ticket price, you get a meal at their restaurant Refuel, which is really good. The food there is fantastic. You could also have afternoon tea if you prefer that. So have a try of that one if you're here on a Sunday. Trip Hacks DC said, have you tried Mobike or Obike? How are they working out in London? I think we only have Obike here, but I'm not sure. So what that is, if you don't know, is like a bike sharing system kind of. It's like you rent the bike, but then you can leave it anywhere as opposed to having to dock it at like a place where you can actually leave the bikes, which is what the city bikes do. I've never tried it. I asked somebody about it the other day who was using it, and he said it was good, but there's been a lot of backlash from people in the city because like people just leave them wherever, and it kind of like litters the streets essentially. So I'm not sure if I'll try it anytime soon. Court Kiesler said, what is the best place to stop and get something sweet? Ice cream, chocolate, macaroons. Fortnum and Mason has like a dessert bar. That's a good place to go to. If you're around Covent Garden and you want like pastries or anything, I like Nordic Bakery. Ben's Cookies, that's like a chain of where you can get like hot baked cookies. Those are everywhere. Lola's Cupcakes, that's around Covent Garden as well, but they also have stands in a lot of the stations around the city. For chocolate, you can pop into Paul A. Young, his chocolatier shop, his chocolate shop. Or there's a place in Carnaby called Chalky Walkie Doodah, and that is like the chocolate shop of all chocolate shops. Baxter said, what's the best ice cream place in London? Probably my favorite is Utterlicious, which is in Seven Dials. Ariana said, what is the best place for a fun, out of the ordinary date? I particularly think that going to see a comedy show and then you could have like drinks or dinner before or after, that's good fun. You can usually get pretty cheap tickets for places like around Covent Garden or Leicester Square. We got like £10 tickets once to the, I think it's called like the Secret Comedy Club. That was it. That's near Covent Garden. Also, there's this place called Bali Ballerson. It's in Shoreditch. They have a massive ball pit, and that's pretty fun. It's not terribly cheap, and you get 2 hours in the ball pit, but you get really tired because like we're old, and when you're a kid you used to be able to play in those things for like hours, but now it's you get really tired, but it is fun and like kind of like a funny thing to do. It's like breaks the ice really easily. Seguin and Chic said, if you could only make time for one museum, which would it be? Personally for me, I think out of all the museums, I'm not a museum person, but I've enjoyed the most the Wimbledon Tennis Museum. If you're not really into tennis or don't want to travel out to Wimbledon, I guess suggestions for you guys would be, if you like modern art, you could go to Tate Modern, or if you're into like, I guess, older art and like portrait art and stuff, you could go to the National Gallery and the National Portrait Gallery. They're right next to each other and they're in Trafalgar Square. She also asked, what is the best vintage market that doesn't have the tourist markup? I don't really think there's any vintage markets with tourist markups because there's not really vintage markets like in central London, as far as I know at least. I would say for vintage, if you go to Shoreditch and Spitalfields, there are a lot of vintage shops there, and that's where I usually have a look for some bit more vintagey things. Old Spitalfields Market sometimes has like vintage pop-ups, but I think it just depends on the day, but there's loads of shops like all down Brick Lane and around there. Kate said, I have one more question. We'll be traveling from London to Manchester for the second half of our trip. How do you recommend we get there? I don't really recommend anyone to drive here unless you have experience with driving on the other side of the road. Also, like renting a car is a pain. I don't think anyone should drive in London. Parking's like, it would just be a thing. You should definitely just take the train in my opinion. I'm not sure if you can fly there, but it's kind of a waste. I would just take the train. And for more information on like how to find tickets for the train or like your other options and stuff, I do have a video on how to like get outside of London for trips. So you can, I think the card that's popping up here, you can watch that video. Sean said, if you only had one day in London, what do you have to do? Oh, Sean, that I can't answer that, to be honest. Like, it completely depends on who you are and like what you like to do. For some people, that's gonna be like, go see Big Ben, although it's really covered up right now. For other people, it's gonna be like to just go check out maybe like Covent Garden or to go to Greenwich and check out Greenwich. It really just depends. I never only have one day in London, so it's hard for me to answer that even. I know that doesn't answer your question, but it's just like there's just a bajillion things. Depends on your budget, stuff like that. So you kind of have to figure it out on your own. Arezzo Hakami said, best place for afternoon tea. So I have a video about how to get afternoon tea, and you can watch that by clicking the card that's popping up there. Best place, like there's a load of really good places, and I don't have like a number one place because I've had lots of great teas everywhere. It also depends on like what your budget is. So if I were to say that Claridge's was my favorite and I think is the best, that starts at like 65 pounds a person. That might not be your budget, which is totally fine. But if you watch that video, that will help. Also, in the video, I mentioned my free course of things you must do in London. If you sign up for that course, I do have a couple of recommendations for tea in there. And then finally, in the local guide to London, I have all of the tea places that I recommend in that guide. Wanda said, I love to people watch. What is the best place to grab a hot chocolate and just sit and people watch? I think probably my favorite is Covent Garden. If it's cold, there's like little restaurants around the piazza that have outdoor seating, and you can get usually hot chocolate or like mulled wine from there. And then you can just sit and watch. There's usually loads of people around, and there's also usually performers that are in the square that are doing like performances. So you can watch, that's kind of like the perfect thing for people watching. So yep, I think Covent Garden's your best bet for that. Okay, thanks everybody who commented on the Instagram post. If you have a question for my next Q&A, leave it down in the comments of this video and I might answer it for you. Hopefully I will do that in like the next 3 weeks or so. Anyway, for more tips and tricks for London, don't forget to subscribe to Love and London. You can do that by clicking my head that's popping up here. And you can watch this video about London next.